forgetting. But, all right. Okay, let us look to God's Word. We've been in 1 Samuel. This Sunday evening, Chaplain Jim Badama will be here Sunday night. So we're looking forward to him coming. We always love when Chaplain Jim comes. Okay. We're going to be in 1 Samuel chapter 8. We've been talking about the seeds of the kingdom because we're looking for God's kingdom to come. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. God had purposed from the beginning that there would be an earthly king, and he would be the king. Now, there's been other kings, and we're going to read here tonight about the first king of Israel, who was not a good one. And when I first started reading the Bible and I read these stories, I thought, I would think, God, why did you pick Saul? Why did you tell Samuel to pick Saul? Right? And we're going to read about that and talk about that. But the first king, the establishment of the kingdom that would eventually become the Davidic kingdom, that will eventually become the kingdom of our God. It's the kingdom that they thought Jesus was going to claim when he came here the first time, and of course that wasn't the plan. But it's the kingdom that he will establish when he comes here the next time. So the beginnings are way back here. And we know we were talking about how the first part of the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel, it's like the extension of the time of the Judges. We know there was a book of Judges, and then Ruth, and then 1 Samuel. Well, it was the time of the Judges. In Judges, it says there was no king in the land. It repeats that over and over again. And one time it says there was no king in the land, and everybody did what was right in their own eyes. So that's the way it was going on. We know they had a priesthood that had become corrupt, and God put a stop to that. Samuel became the prophet, priest, leader, in essence, God's voice to the nation of Israel. But there was still no king. And we read in chapter 8, if you want a little bit more, you can get tapes or go on YouTube and hear the other messages up to this. We're going to cover a lot of ground tonight, I hope. If you haven't listened to the message that Sister Cheryl preached, that's on YouTube, it's on Facebook. You need to listen to it. On Sunday night, she preached a great message about the burning of the scroll. It's a good message. Anyway, okay. Chapter 8 of 1 Samuel. And it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. The name of the firstborn was Joel, and the name of the second Abiah, and they were judges in Beersheba. And his sons walked not in his ways. They were for some reason, his sons were just like the sons of Eli. They did not walk in his ways. It says they took bribes, they turned after filthy lucre, and they perverted judgment. Not like that happens anymore, right? Okay. Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah, and they said unto him, Behold, you're old, and your sons are rotten. Now make us a king. We want a king. Just like all the nations around us, we want a king. They wanted somebody to lead them, somebody with the authority. They wanted to be able to be just like all the nations. All these nations had kings and leaders they didn't have, and they had this prophet and they had a priest. They said, we want a king. We want to be like everybody else. And this thing displeased Samuel when they said, give us a king. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. Maybe he complained a little bit. Sister Patty, we were talking about complaining on the way over. And the Lord said unto Samuel, listen to the voice of the people in all that they say unto you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. They did not have the faith to believe that there was a God in heaven that was controlling their situations, their circumstances. So they wanted to have a visual. They wanted to see somebody that was the king. I guess we're all like that. It's hard for us sometimes to grasp things by faith. We have to see it. In the meantime, listen, God is setting this thing up. Because he realized that if you look at the whole picture, God purposed from before the beginning of time, that his son would reign as king on the earth. So he wanted to establish a kingdom. So Samuel told all the words of the Lord unto the people. that asked of him of a king. Verse 11. And he said, this will be the manner of the king that shall reign. You want a king? I'll give you a king. Here's what's going to happen. He'll take your sons, he'll appoint them for himself in his chariots, and to be his horsemen, and some shall run before the chariots. And he will appoint him captains over thousands and captains over 50s, and will set them to ear his ground, and to reap his harvest, and to make his instruments of war and instruments of chariots. You want a king? You're going to have to work for him. And he will take your fields and your vineyards and your olive yards, even the best of them, and give them to his servants, because kings can do that. They can do whatever they want. And he will take the tenth of your seed and of your vineyards and give to his officers and to his servants. Taxes. Yeah. Okay. I don't know why, but human governors just seem to love taxes, don't they? And he will take your men servants and your maid servants and your goodliest young men and your asses and put them to his work. And he will take the tenth of your sheep, and you shall be his servants. And you shall cry out in that day because of your king which you shall have chosen you. And the Lord will not hear you in that day. It's like, watch what you pray for. Nevertheless, the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel, and they said, no, we're going to have a king, that we may also be like all. We just want to be just like them. Why should we be different? You know, if you read the law that God gave to them, coming through the wilderness, everything that he gave them was to make them different from everybody else. The clothes they wore, the food they ate, the way they worshiped, that was supposed to set them apart from the world, but they wanted what the world had. So Samuel heard all the words of the people and rehearsed them in the ears of the Lord. And the Lord said to Samuel, listen to their voice and make them a king. And Samuel said unto the men of Israel, okay, now, here we go. Verse 9. There was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, the son of, I'm not going to try to pronounce all these names. He was a Benjamite, a mighty man of power. And he had a son whose name was Saul, a choice young man and a goodly, and there was none among the children of Israel. If you were going to pick anybody in all of Israel who looks like he would make a good king, Saul was him. You have in your picture, have in your mind a picture of a king. Saul was him. I often thought and again, when I would first start reading the Bible, when I got saved, I would say, why didn't he just go get David? David was his choice. David was a man after God's own heart. Why did he put Saul? Why did he tell? See, I found out something, that sometimes God lets us see the worst before he gives us the best. And King David had his problems too. But there was a difference. We're going to find out. There was a difference. David believed God. But let's read a little bit more. We'll get there. Okay. He had a son whose name was Saul, a choice young man. There was not among the children of Israel a goodlier person than he. From his shoulders and upward, he was higher than any of the people. Okay. And the asses of Kish, Saul's father, were lost. And Kish said to Saul, his son, take now one of the servants with thee and go arise. You know, the donkey herd left and ran off. And his dad said, go find these jackasses. And he passed through Mount Ephraim and passed through the land of Shalisha. And they found them not. Then they passed through the land of Shalem. Okay, drop down. And when they were come to the land of Zuph, Saul said to a servant that was with him, come and let us return, lest my father leave not. Saul didn't have a clue. He's just some farmer's kid going out looking for donkeys. It says in verse 6, and he said unto him, behold, now there is in this city a man of God, and he's an honorable man. All that he says comes surely to pass. Now let us go there. Maybe he can tell us where the donkeys were. Then said Saul to his servant, but behold, if we go, what shall we bring the man? For the bread is spent in our vessels, and there is not a present to bring to the man of God. What have we? And the servant said, I got $5 in my pocket. We'll give that to him. Okay. Now he said, before time, verse, drop down. Okay. Verse 14. They went into the city, and when they were come into the city, behold, Samuel came out against them, not against them, but he came out to meet them, for to go up to the high place. Now the Lord had told Samuel in his ear a day before that Saul came, saying, tomorrow about this time I'll send you a man out of the land of Benjamin, and you shall anoint him to be captain over my people Israel, that he may save my people out of the hands of the Philistines. For I have looked upon my people because their cry has come unto me. They were in tension. They had a land dispute like they still have today. And they were in tension with the Philistines. And when Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said unto him, Behold the man who I spoke to thee of, this same shall reign over my people. Well, God, why didn't you just send him to David? Okay. And Samuel answered, Saul drew near to Samuel, verse 18, and said, Tell me, I pray, where the seer's house is. And Samuel said, I'm him. He says, Go before me to the high place, for you shall eat with me today, and tomorrow I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to tell you what's in your heart. He said, I got something to tell you, Saul. Saul doesn't have a clue. He's looking for donkeys. He says, as for your ass, verse 20, as for thine asses, they were lost 3 days ago. Set not thy mind on them. They're okay, they're found. And on whom is all the desire of Israel? Is it not on you and on all thy father's house? Said Saul, all of Israel is waiting for you. All of Israel. Saul's like, me? Sort of like Gideon. Remember the story about Gideon? Gideon was hiding, threshing wheat. And God said, Thou mighty man of valor. And Gideon said, Who, me? And Saul was like, what? Who, me? He says, in the same kind of answer, Am I not a Benjamite, of the smallest of the tribes of Israel? Why was Benjamin the smallest tribe in Israel? Anybody know? There's a couple reasons. Benjamin was the youngest son of Jacob. He was the last one born. He was Joseph's full brother, the youngest one, and when he was born, Rachel died in childbirth. Rachel was going to name him son of my sorrow, but Jacob said, no, he's the son of my right hand. That's what the name means, the smallest. But if you want to know why they're the smallest tribe, you have to go back to the book of Judges. When they were living in chaos, it was anarchy, there was no king of the land, everybody did what was right in their own eyes. And the last 2 chapters of Judges, it's a trip. It's almost like reading about Sodom and Gomorrah, okay? Because what happened was, there was a guy who had a concubine with him, okay? And he went to the place where the Benjaminites were, the city where there was their capital, and the Benjamites were like the Sodomites. The guy, one of the people of that town, let the guy stay with him, and the Benjamites came pounding on the door and says, we want that guy, send him out, just like the Sodomites did. So the guy said, listen, want to take my concubine? So they said, okay. So he threw her out, right? I mean, this is how bad it was in Israel. This is where they lived. So they killed her. They raped her all night and they killed her. And when the guy came out the next day, he saw her laying on the ground and said, come on, let's go. And she was dead. So what's he do? So it's really disgusting. You can read it for yourself. But he basically summoned all of Israel and said, look what Benjamin did to my wife. In the meantime, he's the one that threw her out, right? Okay, so what happened was all of Israel came against the Benjamites. And they fought against them. And they killed many of them. That's one of the main reasons why Benjamin was one of the smallest tribes in all Israel. Because they defiled this woman, and the rest of Israel came against them. And at the end, God spoke to them and said, listen, this is your brother. So they stopped. But a lot of them got wiped out, okay? So he says, I'm the smallest tribe. My family, the least of all the families of the tribe of Benjamin. Why are you speaking like this to me? And Samuel took Saul and his servant and brought them into the parlor and made them sit in the chief place. There was about 30 persons. And Samuel said to the cook, bring the portion and so forth, and just drop down. Look at verse. Chapter 10, verse 1. Just for time's sake. And Samuel took a vial of oil. Here we go. He sent the servant on, and he took a vial of oil and poured it upon his head, Saul's head, and kissed him and said, is it not because the Lord has anointed thee to be captain over his inheritance? So Saul's like, wow, what? Me? When you are departed from me today, you shall find 2 men by Rachel's sepulchre in the border of Benjamin. He's given all these signs to prove that he's telling them the truth. He says, you shall go forward from there, in verse 3, and you shall come to the plain of Tabor, and there shall meet thee 3 men going up to God to Bethel, one carrying 3 kids. He's giving him all these signs to prove that he's telling them the truth. He said, and they will salute thee and give thee 2 loaves of bread, and so forth. And if you drop down to verse 6, he tells Saul, and the Spirit of the Lord will come upon you, and you shall prophesy with them, and shall be turned into another man. Turn into another man. Now, you can go, and if you ever get into the thing, the once saved, always saved, blah, 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 and people talk about Saul, and some people will say, well, Saul was never really saved. And some people say, this isn't anything about, forget that, just forget that whole discussion. Another man, Saul, is going to be turned into another man. A lot of people read that and say, well, man, he must have got saved. It doesn't say a new man. It says another man. See, because we're going to find out as we go through here that if Saul got saved, he sure didn't act like it. Anytime. He didn't. Some people say he started out good. No, he didn't. He might have gotten, the Spirit might have come on him. The Spirit even moved through him. He prophesied. And he said he made him another man. Well, maybe he's just going to change him from the farmer's kid to the king. See, my Bible tells me we're saved by faith. Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him for righteousness. But Saul never believed God. He believed Samuel. As we go through the story, as long as Samuel was around, Saul was just... After Samuel died, he went to a witch to try to bring him back up again. He didn't believe in God. I don't think he ever did. He said, you'll be another man. And listen to what he said. After that you shall come to the hill of God, where is the garrison of the Philistines. And it shall come to pass, when you are come there to the city, that thou shalt meet a company of prophets coming down from the high place. We read that already. Verse 7. And let it be, when these signs are come unto thee, that you do as occasion serve thee, for God is with thee. And you shall go down before me to Gilgal, and behold, I will come down unto you to offer burnt offerings and to sacrifice of peace offerings. 7 days shall thou tarry till I come to thee. Da, da, da. And it was so that when he had turned back his back to go from Samuel, God gave him another heart. God gave him another heart. A new heart? A born-again heart? I don't believe it says that. He gave him the heart. He was a heart of a farmer's kid looking for a bunch of donkeys. He's giving him a heart of the king. God gave him a heart of a king. You read on, you find out that he began to prophesy. He began to work. Somebody says, well, that must mean he really did get saved. Judas prophesied. Judas cast out devils. They went 2 and 2. You remember the story? Jesus sent them out 2 and 2. Balaam, over in the book of Numbers. God spoke to him. He said, I can only say what God gave me to say. And then he said a few other things too. It got him in trouble. God used a donkey. Saul. I'm thinking, God, why did you pick Saul? He didn't even believe in you. Oh, he went through. He was a Jew. He probably went to the temple. He probably did this, or the tabernacle. He probably did this stuff he was supposed to do. The law said to do. But there was never any indication in all these stories about Saul, one time that he trusted in God. King David wrote all these psalms about trusting in the Lord. The Lord owns a cattle on 1,000 hills. The Lord will fight my battles. He'll be my buckler. He'll be my shield. Saul never had that. He never said nothing like that. We're going to find out tonight. We're not going to get there. But when he was getting ready to go into battle, he got tired of waiting for Samuel. He figured, well, he'll just do it himself. Make the offering himself. Samuel finally got there and he said, Saul, that wasn't a good thing. He didn't believe in God. You call him to be king. God, why did you call somebody to be king that didn't believe in you? But maybe he wanted to see the people to see just how bad it can be. You know, because David, he had his problems too. But David was a man after God's own heart. He believed in God. He did some stupid stuff. He was a bloody man. But he believed in God. It says, reading verse 11. And it came to pass when all that knew him before time saw that, behold, he prophesied among the prophets, then the people said to another, what is this that has come unto the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets? I mean, they never expected him to be doing that. He was a farmer's kid. He's prophesying. And one of the same place answered and said, but who is their father? Therefore it became a proverb, is Saul also among the prophets? Okay, they began talking about him. And when he had made an end of prophesying, he came to the high place, and Saul's uncle said unto him and to his servant, where have you been? And he said, to seek the asses. When we saw that they were nowhere, we came to Samuel. And Saul's uncle said, tell me, I pray thee, what Samuel said. And Saul said unto his uncle, he told us plainly that they were found, but of the matter, he never did say nothing about his kingship. Okay. And Samuel called the people together unto the Lord to Mizpeh, and said to the children of Israel, thus says the Lord God of Israel, I brought up Israel out of Egypt, and delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all kingdoms, and of them that oppressed you. I brought you out. It wasn't Moses. I used him as your leader. But he didn't part the Red Sea. He didn't make the sun stand still. He couldn't even hold his arms up long enough. Somebody had to help. God says, I did it. I brought you out. And this day you've rejected me. I haven't been your leader. You haven't been pleased with my leadership. You rejected your God, who himself saved you out of all your adversities and your tribulations, and you have said unto him, no, but set a king over us. How many times do we look for somebody else to help us, and we either forget about God or give up on God, or think that God doesn't care about a situation, or just don't believe he's going to do anything? That's where we fall into unbelief. God's not going to do anything. How many people here know God will do something? You all experience God doing something. Sometimes it's not our time. Anyway, they were like, we need a king. They were all saying, always stiff-necked. He said, no, but set a king over us. Now therefore present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and by your thousands. And when Samuel had caused all the tribes of Israel to come near, the tribe of Benjamin was taken. What they would do was, when you read something like this, they had, the high priest would have what they call Urim and Thummim. You ever hear those words in the Bible? They were like sticks or stones. They were like stones. And one was yes and one was no. It was like drawing lots, what they call about drawing lots. So what they do is they have all the leaders of the tribes of Israel, all the tribes gathered there, and they walk before him, and here comes Asher, and they say, no. Here comes Judah, no. Here comes Naphtali, no. Here comes Benjamin, yes. Oh. So then all the families in Benjamin would come by. No, 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 yes. Until they finally got it narrowed down to the family of Saul. When he caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near by their families, the family of Matri and taken, and Saul the son of Kish was taken. And when they sought him, they couldn't be found. He was hiding. Therefore they inquired of the Lord further if a man should yet come here. And the Lord answered and said, behold, he has hid himself among the stuff. Never could figure that one out. If somebody's getting ready to make me king, I think I'd be standing there waiting. And they ran and fetched him. Now he had all these signs of the prophets and everything that Samuel said was going to happen. He should have been convinced by now. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was just being like humble. Who knows? And they ran and fetched him thence. And when he stood among the people, he was higher than all the people from the shoulders upward. He was like. And Samuel said to all the people, see ye him whom the Lord has chosen, that there is none like him among all the people. And all the people shouted and said, God save the king. They wasn't going to say that very long. Oh, they were, man, he got us a good king. Tall, probably handsome, strong. God save the king. And Samuel told the people the manner of the kingdom and wrote it in a book and laid it before the Lord, and Samuel sent all the people away. They had this big inauguration here in front of everybody. Isn't it interesting that when God sent Samuel to choose David, there was like nobody there? David wasn't hiding. He was just doing his job. Okay. So I just said, Lord, I wouldn't have chose Saul. I mean, God knew what was going to happen. But God has a purpose for everything. Okay. It says, Saul also went home to Gibeah, and there went with him a band of men whose hearts God had touched. But the children of Belial, there's always the detractors, said, how shall this man save us? Okay, so always the people look down on. Okay, now, the next few chapters, the next chapter, Saul raises up, these Ammonites came and they threatened some people, and Saul defended them. So we're going to kind of pass, just you can read that whole story. But in chapter 12, and I'm sorry if I didn't get this up on just maybe put it up. We just got a few more minutes. I'm just reading a little bit. And Samuel said unto all Israel, behold, I have hearkened unto your voice, and that you have said unto me, and have made a king. And now behold, the king walks before you, and I am old and gray-headed. This is the transition now from the judges to the kingdom. And my sons are with you, and I have walked before you from my childhood even unto this day. It says, behold, I'm here, I'm a witness against me before the Lord, and before his anointed. Whose ox have I taken, or whose ass? He's saying, listen, have I cheated anybody? See, Samuel's like, this is his kind of swan song for the people. Because now he's turning it over to the king. He says, have I cheated anybody? Have I taken advantage? Have I taken a bribe? Have I lied to anybody? Have I mistreated you? Thank God he wasn't running for Congress. Okay. And they said, you've never defrauded us. You've never oppressed us. So verse 5 says this, and the Lord is witness against you, he said, and his anointed is witness this day, that you have not found aught in my hand. And they answered, he is witness. And Samuel said unto the people, it is the Lord that advanced Moses and Aaron, and that brought your fathers up out of the land of Egypt. Now therefore stand still, that I may reason with you before the Lord of all the righteous acts of the Lord which he had did to you. And he began talking about all the things that God has done for them. He's saying in verse 12, and when you saw Nahash, the king of the children of Ammon, came against you, you said unto me, nay, but a king shall reign over us. He said, you don't want to trust God anymore, you wanted the hand of man. So now therefore, behold, the king who you have chosen. Well, I thought God chose him. God chose the one that he knew that they would choose. He chose the one that he knew would impress the whole nation of Israel. He was appealing to their flesh. He was appealing to their sense, what they can see and hear and smell and touch. He was appealing to, if he would put David in front of them, they said, him? Who wants him? He's just a shepherd. Get him out of here. So God picked the biggest, tallest one, and he turned out to be a disaster. Have you ever picked the best looking one, and there turned out to be, I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about whatever. You fill in the blank. It could be a people, a car, a house, whatever. you know. Have you ever gone before God and make a decision without praying about it? They had to have a king. Listen to what, and we're going to close. Verse 20 of that chapter 12, and we're going to close. Samuel said, the people wept. They were, in verse 18, Samuel called unto the Lord, and the Lord sent thunder and rain that day. And all the people greatly feared the Lord and Samuel. And all the people said unto Samuel, pray for your servants unto the Lord thy God, that we die not. For we have added unto all our sins this evil to ask a king. It occurred to them that they had done wrong. But it was too late. Samuel said unto the people, Fear not, you have done all this wickedness, yet turn not aside from following the Lord, but serve the Lord with all your heart. And turn ye not aside, for then should you go after vain things, which cannot profit nor deliver, for they are vain. For the Lord will not forsake his people for his great name's sake. Even though they asked for a king, even though they didn't want to trust in him, God had a bigger plan. He had a bigger plan. This was the beginning of the kingdom that would turn into the kingdom of our Lord Jesus Christ. Because all the kings that they had, they all failed. They were all faulty. But thank the Lord, when Jesus comes back, he's going to be the perfect king. God will reign. They didn't want God to reign over them when they couldn't see him, so God's going to come here so they can see him. Moreover, as for me, God forbid that I should sin against the Lord in ceasing to pray for you. But I will teach you the good and the right way. Only fear the Lord and serve him in truth with all your heart. For consider how great things he has done for you. But if you shall do wickedly, you shall be consumed, both you and your king. Consider all the good things that God has done. You got a king now. It's going to be, sometimes he's going to do things, especially this one. There's going to come times you're going to regret that you even asked for this king. But that's okay. Fear God. Keep his commandments. Serve him in truth with all your heart. See, salvation back then is the same as today. It wasn't the ritual of going through, bringing the offerings and the sacrifices. Salvation back then was a relationship with God. You believe God, it's counted to you for righteousness. That's how Abraham was saved. That's how David was saved. Abraham wasn't perfect. He had his closet full of tricks too. But he believed God. That's what salvation is. Brother Leo was sharing about, he was sharing with a nurse in the hospital about being born again. He said, you ever hear about being born again? She said, I never heard that. Well, she had now. Okay? It's the relationship. It's not the religion. It's not the ritual. It's that, I believe you, God. Saul never believed God. He never believed God. Samuel's saying, listen, believe God. You got a king. You got him now. But that doesn't change who your real king is. And someday, they're going to see their king. We're going to see our king seated on the throne in the flesh. Job said, I know my Redeemer lives, and I'll see him standing someday on the earth. I'm going to see him. I'm going to see him reigning. He's not going to be some earthly king, some human king is going to do something stupid along the way. But the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. I thank God for the kingdom of God that's coming. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Amen? Next week we'll pick up and we'll read about Saul. Oh, Saul had some. Thinking, Lord, why in the world did you ever choose that king? I used to think that. I know why. I understand now. I'd have picked somebody else. I would have went right to that sheepfold. that little boy David was with the red face. Why waste your time on somebody like that? Well, he had his reason. I said this before. It's interesting that in the New Testament, there was a man named Saul from the tribe of Benjamin who became the great apostle. He started out religious. He ended up giving us everything we know about Christ. What we believe about the church, about salvation, grace, most of it came from the pen of the Apostle Paul. Saul of Benjamin. I don't know, God has a sense of humor, I guess. He has a way of doing things. Everything that happens back then is for a reason. Everything that happened in the Old Testament was for an example, to show us how God works and how we think. Anyway, okay, we'll pick up next week. Anybody have a comment or question or anything at all before we close? Yes, John.